again, drop trowel. It's like a theme in the tests. It's just get naked. That's just like the theme. Okay, you guys, it is Monday and I am at the colorectal surgeon, and I've never been here before, and I'm supposed to have a pelvic floor test, which I'm told is not a good time, so I'm nervous, and which is funny because I don't normally get nervous at any of this stuff anymore. I'm totally immune, but this one I'm nervous for, and hopefully it'll be good. So they took my vitals and I'm back in the room and I'm waiting, so cross my fingers this one goes well and super quick, and I'll tell you guys what happens afterwards. Oh my gosh. Okay. It was just as bad as I expected it to be. Okay. So I go in the room after the vitals and whatever. And then I waited for a few minutes, and then the surgeon was the one actually doing the test, which was really cool. So I got to meet him, and he was like a little short man. He was probably like that tall up next to me. And he introduced himself. He shook my hand, which is like, apparently they don't teach doctors that anymore, so that was super, super nice. And he sat down and he asked why I was there. So I told him kind of the Cliff Notes version of why I was there and why my GI wanted me to be seen to have the test done, just to kind of rule stuff out, you know, and make sure it's not a musculature type problem. He was super friendly. He had really good bedside manner. He sat there and explained the test to me. Didn't make me feel any more warm and fuzzy about it, which sucked, but it is what it is. So he said that they were sterilizing the equipment, and it would be just a few minutes. And so I, of course, asked to go to the bathroom first. So I did that, and then I came out, and then a few minutes later, the female technician came and got me, and she brought me into the room. She asked me, she gave me a gown, and again, drop trowel. It's like a theme in the tests. It's just get naked. That's just like the theme. And so I got to keep my dress on though. And so I put the gown over that, and which was nice because it was really cold in the room. So it gave me like a little bit of extra something. And so I stood there, and she's trying to calibrate the machine or something. Like there's lots of hoobie-joobying going on. And it was just kind of strange because you could tell that she wasn't real pleased on what was happening. And then he comes in the room and he was like, okay, you know, go ahead and get up on the table and lay down. And so I'm doing that, and there's kind of like some whispering going on. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So long story short, I broke another machine before I touched it. This one, it wasn't calibrating at all. It totally wasn't giving the right, like, zeroed out measurements, so that it couldn't perform the test. So she reset it, and then she had to turn off the whole thing. Then we had to wait for the whole thing to reboot back up, and then it still wasn't working. And then he had to start futzing with it, and she's futzing with it too. And then they reset it again, and then they said it was finally working. And I'm thinking, well, that's a good job, because I'm not coming back for this, so you like have one shot at it. So while all this is going on, like, I can't lay down on like hard surfaces like that. I mean, they hurt my spine, they hurt my hips. It hurts my stomach laying like that, even though I had my legs pulled up. So I just sat up. And so I'm just sitting there, and we're like making jokes about technology and whatever. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is so horrible. And then, so they finally get it all working right. And like half of me was thankful because I didn't want to have to come back again. The other half of me was like, oh, damn it, I didn't want to have this done. And so I just suck it up. And so he's like, okay, so go ahead and lay down. And he was like, and get on your left side. It's always the left side. I don't know why, but you have to do that for endoscopies and colonoscopies and obviously pelvic floor tests. So I get on my left side and he was like, okay, I'm going to tell you everything that's going on before I do it so you're not, freaked out or scared or whatever. I said, okay. And so there's going to be a lot of cussing in this video. So like, if you don't like cussing, you should probably go ahead and leave now. So he's like, okay, well, the first part of the test is going to be a digital rectal exam. And I'm thinking, great. And so he was like, so now I am touching your bottom. I swear to God. I swear to God, that's what he said, this grown-ass man. I'm going to touch your bottom now. It was very funny. And so he was like, okay, it's just my hands, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, now I'm going to stick a finger in your bottom. And I was just like, oh, Lordy. I was like, these are just horrible tests. They're just horrible. And so he shoves a finger up my ass and then he pulls it back out. And he was like, okay, that was it for that. And I'm thinking, and I start laughing because all I could think is, you just wanted to stick a finger up my ass. It had nothing to do about the test. You just totally wanted to finger my ass. And it just, oh my God. So I get the giggles. I want to say it so bad because I have a hard time holding my jokes. But I did not say that because I thought it would be horrible. And okay, so he did that, and then he gets this, okay, he called it a manometer, and it was about that tall, so it was about 8 inches long or so, and it was about the size of like a finger, and so the whole thing was like a probe, and then at the end of it, there's like this balloon section, but obviously it's all like squished up to start with. And so he's like, okay, so we're going to put in the manometer. And so I'm like, okay. And so he shoves the manometer up my ass. And it wasn't horrible, I guess, but it's some dude you've never met and he's shoving stuff up your ass. Like, it's not a fun time. So they put it in there. And then he was like, okay, we had to do 3 things with it. So he's like, okay. So he said, hold on to it like you're holding in poop. And so I'm like, totally sucking up seat cushion. So he does that for however long. Felt like forever. I'm sure it wasn't. And then he was like, okay, now try to like poosh it out like you're pooping. And so I'm like, I'm trying to poop the sucker out. And then he was like, okay. And he was like, now we're going to blow up the balloon on the end. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh God. The whole thing was awful. And I'm still having the giggles. And so he's like, so he's blowing up the balloon. And he was like, tell me when you start feeling something. And I'm like, oh, I can feel it. And he was like, okay. He's like, now, he's like, tell me when it feels like you have to go to the bathroom. And I was like, okay. So they keep blowing up the balloon until it literally feels like you have poop sitting there. And I'm like, okay, it feels like I have to poop. And then he goes, now tell me when it's like an emergency. And you have to like it would be to the point that you have to like run to the bathroom. And so they keep inflating it. And I was like, now. And so he was like, okay, that's good. And then he's like, okay, we're going to let all the air out. I'm like, okay, so he lets the air out. And then he pulls the sucker out. It's just gross. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to put a catheter in. And I'm thinking, you're going to put a catheter where? And so the catheter goes like a Foley catheter, like a regular catheter, goes up your ass. And then they blow it up, like they fill the balloon portion with fluid, which normally keeps it in your bladder, but it's in your ass. And so he's like, and then as soon as we're done with that, then you have to walk into the bathroom, which is right next door, and you have to try to poop it out. And I'm like, this test is just getting better and better. And so the tech is like rifling through stuff on the right, and now I'm facing the other direction. Okay, so I'm facing this way. And they're like rifling around back there. Both of them are. And they're whispering again. And I'm like, oh, did I break something else? And then all of a sudden they're like, we have no Foley catheters. And so they were completely out of them. And so he goes and he was like, I think we're going to skip that part of the test anyways. And I'm thinking, I'm not fucking coming back for anything else. So like, whatever you're doing, you better do it right now. And he was like, the other parts of your test were 100% fine. And he goes, I guarantee you that part of the test would be fine too, because I've never seen somebody be 100% fine up to this point and then have trouble with the last part. He's like, I don't think it's a problem at all. He was like, I really think it's absolutely fine that we don't do it. And I'm thinking, fabulous. And so he's like, so I'm going to go ahead, and I like rolled over at this point so I could like face him, because I really don't like need him talking to my naked ass. It just doesn't do anything for me. And so I rolled over so I could face him. And so he was like, so go ahead, you know, like get cleaned up and then meet me in the other room, and then I'll tell you like what happened during the test. And I'm okay. So I get up, and it was a little like awkward, because it was like, was I supposed to like use the gown and like wipe my ass with it to get all the sonogram gooey crap lube, whatever they used, like off? Or was I supposed to go to the bathroom? Like, was she gonna hand me something? And he just leaves. So he leaves, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. It was so awkward. And so I took off the gown and I put it on one of the trays, and then I walked into the bathroom and like took another half shower in their bathroom, and washed my hands like 3 times. It was just so awful. And then, so I go back to my room, and I sat there for just a little bit, like a couple minutes, and he comes in and he was like, everything was fine. He was like 110% perfect. He was like, there is no pelvic floor issues whatsoever. And I was like, is that normal with the rest of my GI problems? And he said, yeah. He said, people with the same kind of connective tissue stuff that I have that, you know, wrecks me inside and outside. And he was like, a lot of people are like that. You know, pelvic floor is absolutely fine, but the rest of it's messed up. And he was, so we were talking about kind of like long term and whatnot. And he said, you know, a lot of people that have like the severe large intestine dysmotility like I have, and he was like, you know, sometimes, you know, he's like, obviously you try all of the medical stuff that you can first, you know, and medications and, you know, over the counter and, you know, increased fluids and all of that to try to get it taken care of, obviously without surgical means and whatnot. But he said, you know, in the future, if it happens, you know, that I do have to have something surgically like removed, like I have to have part of my colon removed or something like that. And he's like, I can absolutely do all of that for you. And he was like, so now that we've already, you know, that we've met, we've had our meet and greet. And he goes, you know, if anything like that would have had to happen, he's like, you would have had to have this test done anyways. And he's like, so it's one step closer to having, you know, anything else that you need to have done. So that made me feel better too. Mostly just that I met him and I liked him. I thought he was super nice. And some of the other ones that I've met, like through this whole journey, like they're ass wipes and it's just awful and you don't want to have anything to do with them. You sure as heck don't want to have to put your trust into them. So all in all, it was a good, I'm not going to say experience because it wasn't good. It was good to get it looked at. You know, I advocated for myself when I needed to. It was one of those things, you know, with chronic illness that you have to deal with, and you make the best of it and you make jokes and, you know, and then you make YouTube videos about it so everybody else can know what's going on. So anyways, it worked out. It was okay. Could have been worse. I could have been pooping out catheters, that I didn't have to do that part. So, it is what it is. I'm glad it's done. It was really weird being nervous about it because I don't get nervous about any of this stuff because I've got so much of it, I guess, in my back pocket that I've done so much. It's just pretty much everything is a whatever. This one weirded me out, but, you know, nobody likes having their ass probed by someone. It's just, you know, it's just not awesome. You know, first time you meet somebody and have them stick my finger up your ass is just not cool. So, but at least what was also nice that he was the one that did the test so I could have my results immediately. Like, that rarely happens, you know. I mean, everybody knows that you have to wait 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 whatevers for test results to come back. So it was really nice that that part of it was done. So he'll send all the information over to my GI, and so they'll have it for my next follow-up, which is in a couple weeks. So that's it. That was my pelvic floor test. I sympathize with anyone else that has to have it, and hopefully it will be as quick and mostly painless as mine was. And if you like the video, just give it a thumbs up and subscribe below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!